What would you say is the most famous ship name in US naval history? Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Jaxom Talks channel. We're diving deep into naval history again today, and if you've been following the channel, you'll know we're continuing our series on the three legendary Yorktown-class aircraft carriers. We've already covered the USS Yorktown and the USS Hornet, and if you haven't seen those, I highly recommend checking them out after this video. But today, we're focusing on arguably the most famous, and certainly one of the most decorated ships in US naval history. She was known as the Big E, Lucky E, or even the Grey Ghost. She is the one and only USS Enterprise CV-6. The Enterprise's story isn't just another chapter in World War II. It's practically the whole entire damn book for the Pacific theater. She was in the thick of it from day one, and she kept fighting until the very end, earning a reputation for toughness, resilience, and an uncanny ability to survive against overwhelming odds. She truly was the embodiment of American resolve in the Pacific. Let's start, as always, with a look at her origins and specifications and design. The USS Enterprise, designated CV-6, was the second of the three Yorktown-class aircraft carriers. Her keel was laid down on July 16, 1934, at Newport News Shipbuilding, and she was launched on October 3, 1936. She was finally commissioned on May 12, 1938, under the command of Captain Newton H. White. At the time of her commissioning, the Yorktown-class represented the cutting edge of naval aviation power. They were a significant step up from the earlier Lexington-class carriers, designed to balance speed, protection, and aircraft capacity within the limitations of the Washington Naval Treaty. Displacement. She weighed in at 19,800 long tons standard and 25,500 long tons fully loaded. This made her a relatively large carrier for her time, capable of carrying a substantial air group. Length: 824 feet 9 inches overall. Imagine a floating airfield over 2.5 football fields long. For propulsion, the Enterprise was powered by 4 Parsons geared steam turbines, driving 4 shafts. Steam was provided by 9 Babcock and Wilcox boilers. This powerful system delivered 120,000 shaft horsepower, giving her a top speed of 32.5 knots. This speed was crucial for both launching and recovering aircraft. It also allowed a high degree of maneuvering in order to avoid enemy attacks. Her range was approximately 12,000 nautical miles at 15 knots. This impressive range allowed her to operate for extended periods in the vast expanses of the Pacific. Her crew complement typically consisted of around 2,217 officers and enlisted men, though this number could swell significantly during wartime with additional air group personnel. Her armament consisted of 8 5-inch 38 caliber dual-purpose guns in single mounts. These were dual-purpose anti-surface and anti-aircraft weapons. She had 6 1.1-inch 75 caliber anti-aircraft guns quad mounts. These were effective but later supplemented and replaced by the wider used Bofors and Oerlikons. Lastly, she was fitted with 24 50 caliber machine guns. Over time, her anti-aircraft suite was heavily upgraded, with dozens of 40mm Bofors and 20mm Oerlikon cannons added to counter the increasing threat of kamikaze attacks. Officially, she could carry around 90 aircraft. This usually comprised of a mix of Grumman F-4F Wildcat fighters, Douglas SBD Dauntless dive bombers, and Douglas TBD Devastator torpedo bombers, later replaced by Grumman TBF Avengers. The flexibility of her design allowed for various air group configurations depending on the mission. While not as heavily armored as battleships, the Enterprise had decent protection for a carrier. Her flight deck had 1.5-inch special treatment steel or STS armor. Her hangar deck had 2.5-inch STS and her sides had a 4-inch main belt. This was designed to protect vital machinery and magazines from bombs and torpedoes, though it certainly wasn't impenetrable. So, that's the hardware out of the way. A formidable vessel, designed for speed, endurance, and delivering a powerful aerial punch. But ships are nothing without the men who sail them and the pilots who fly from their decks, and the USS Enterprise would be blessed with some of the bravest and most skilled individuals of the war. The Enterprise initially began her operational career with exercises in the Atlantic and Caribbean. This was before being transferred to the Pacific Fleet in April 1939. By late 1941, she was a key component of the US Navy's readiness in the Pacific. In November 1941, the Enterprise was tasked with ferrying Marine Fighter Squadron 211 with their 12 F-4F Wildcats to Wake Island. This mission inadvertently saved her from the fate that befell much of the Pacific Fleet. On the morning of December 7, 1941, while returning to Pearl Harbor, her aircraft began launching for their final leg home. Unknown to them, a devastating Japanese surprise attack was already underway. As several of Enterprise's planes were flying in, unsuspecting of the carnage below, they were shot down by Japanese Zeros and even fell victim of friendly fire from nervous American gunners. The Enterprise herself was still about 200 nautical miles west of Oahu when the attack began. Upon receiving the grim news, her commander, Rear Admiral William F. Halsey, immediately ordered search missions to locate the Japanese fleet. Though they didn't find the main body of the Japanese carriers, Enterprise's planes found and engaged enemy submarines and provided reconnaissance. The Pearl Harbor attack was a rude awakening, but it also solidified the importance of the aircraft carrier. Battleships, once the undisputed kings of the sea, had proven vulnerable. The carriers, particularly those like the Enterprise, were now thrust into the spotlight as the future of naval warfare. With the Pacific Fleet reeling, the Enterprise, along with her sister ship USS Yorktown, became the backbone of the beleaguered US Navy. For the next few months, she was constantly at sea, undertaking defensive patrols and launching audacious raids against Japanese-held islands to boost Allied morale and disrupt Japanese operations. In February 1942, Enterprise struck Kwajalein, Watji, and Malalap in the Marshall Islands, damaging enemy installations and sinking several small ships. In March, she supported the Yorktown's strike against Japanese forces in the Gilbert and Marcus Islands. These were small victories but vital in demonstrating that the US Navy was still in the fight. Then came one of the most daring and iconic missions of the early war, the Doolittle Raid. In April 1942, the Enterprise provided fighter cover for her sister ship, the USS Hornet, as Hornet carried 16 B-25 Mitchell bombers for a secret mission to bomb Tokyo. While the Hornet launched the B-25s, Enterprise's air group stood ready to provide air defense and reconnaissance. It was a risky gambit, launching land-based bombers from a carrier deck, but it was a much-needed psychological victory for the Allies. The turning point of the war in the Pacific, the Battle of Midway, found the Enterprise once again at the heart of the action. In late May 1942, American intelligence cracked the Japanese naval code and learned of their ambitious plan to invade the Midway Atoll. Their plan was to draw out and destroy the remaining US fleet. The American forces were significantly outnumbered in capital ships, but they had the advantage of surprise and superior intelligence. The American force was led by Rear Admiral Raymond Spruance taking over for a sick Admiral Halsey, who commanded Task Force 16, which included the Enterprise and Hornet. In addition, there was Task Force 17 that had the Yorktown joining them later. On the morning of June 4, 1942, both sides launched their strike aircraft. The initial American attacks were disjointed and suffered heavy losses. The TBD Devastator torpedo bomber attack that came from her sister ship the Hornet were decimated by Japanese Zero fighters and anti-aircraft fire, failing to score a single hit. However, the sacrifice of these brave airmen was not in vain. By drawing down the Japanese fighter patrols and forcing the Japanese carriers to continuously maneuver and rearm, they set the stage for the decisive blow. At approximately 10:22 a.m., the tide turned dramatically. 3 squadrons of American dive bombers made up of Enterprise's Scouting Squadron 6, Bombing Squadron 6 and Yorktown's VB-3 arrived over the Japanese fleet almost simultaneously. Due to excellent navigation and sheer luck, they caught the Japanese carriers Akagi, Kaga, and Soru with their decks packed with fully fueled and armed aircraft that were preparing to undertake their own strikes. In a matter of minutes, the American dive bombers delivered a devastating blow. The Enterprise's dive bombers, led by Lieutenant Commander C. Wade McCluskey, critically damaged Akagi and Kaga, turning them into infernos. Soon after, Soru was also hit by Yorktown's planes. Within half an hour, 3 of Japan's most powerful carriers were ablaze and doomed. Later that afternoon, the Enterprise's air group located and crippled the 4th Japanese carrier, the Hiryu, which had launched a retaliatory strike against the Yorktown. The Enterprise had played a direct role in sinking all 4 Japanese carriers present at Midway, a truly incredible feat. The Battle of Midway resulted in a stunning victory for the United States. It effectively broke the back of Japanese carrier power and permanently shifted the strategic balance in the Pacific. The Enterprise, battered but victorious, returned to Pearl Harbor a hero. Midway was a turning point, but the war was far from over. The next major test for the Enterprise came during the grueling Guadalcanal campaign, a brutal 6-month struggle for control of the Solomon Islands. From August 1942 to February 1943, the Enterprise was continuously engaged in air support for the Marines on Guadalcanal, all while fighting fierce naval and aerial battles with the Japanese. On August 7, 1942, Enterprise provided air cover for the initial landings on Guadalcanal and Tulagi. Just 2 days later, a devastating defeat occurred at the Battle of Savo Island, where a Japanese cruiser force decimated an Allied surface fleet. The Enterprise, positioned to the south, could not intervene directly, highlighting the need for carrier air power to protect surface ships. Battle of the Eastern Solomons. In her first major post-Midway battle, Enterprise and Saratoga engaged the Japanese carrier force. Enterprise's planes helped cripple the light carrier Rujo and damaged the seaplane tender Chitose. However, Enterprise herself was hit by 3 bombs from Japanese dive bombers. One bomb penetrated the flight deck, another detonating in her aft elevator with a third causing significant damage. Despite the hits, her damage control teams worked heroically, and she was able to resume flight operations within an hour. This resilience earned her the nickname the Lucky E and the Grey Ghost, as the Japanese repeatedly reported her to be sunk. The Battle of Santa Cruz Islands. Just 2 months later, Enterprise was back in action. Despite not being fully repaired, with the USS Hornet, she faced a superior Japanese carrier force. This was another brutal exchange. Enterprise's aircraft contributed to the sinking of the Japanese carrier Shokaku, but the Enterprise herself was heavily damaged, hit by 2 bombs and a kamikaze attack. Her flight deck was again ripped open, and her forward elevator was rendered inoperable. The Hornet was sunk during this battle, leaving the Enterprise as the only operational U.S. carrier in the Pacific. It was a dire moment. With her flight deck temporarily repaired at sea, she limped back to Pearl Harbor, a testament to her battle-hardened crew and robust construction. After intensive repairs at Pearl Harbor and then at Puget Sound Navy Yard, the Enterprise returned to the fight in May 1943. She participated in various operations around the Solomons and Gilbert Islands, but the relentless pace of her early war service was taking its toll and she needed a well-deserved rest and refit. The Central Pacific Drive. By late 1943 and into 1944, the U.S. Navy had achieved clear air superiority and launched the massive Central Pacific Drive, a relentless island-hopping campaign aimed at bypassing strongholds and seizing key islands for air bases. The new, larger Essex-class carriers were beginning to join the fleet, but the Enterprise remained a vital component of Task Force 5838, the Fast Carrier Task Force. Enterprise participated in the raids on Makin, Tarawa, Kwajalein, Mayuro, and Truk Atoll. The Truk Atoll, which was a major Japanese naval base, was hit particularly hard in February 1944, a strike in which Enterprise's planes played a significant role, destroying numerous Japanese ships and aircraft. The Battle of the Philippine Sea, also known as the Great Mariana Sturkey Shoot. This battle saw the Enterprise as part of the massive U.S. carrier fleet engaging the Japanese in an attempt to protect the landings on Saipan. The overwhelming superiority of American aircraft, particularly the F-6F Hellcat, this in addition to better pilot training resulted in a crushing defeat for Japanese naval aviation. Over 300 Japanese aircraft were shot down, compared to minimal American losses. Enterprise's air groups were instrumental in this victory, shooting down numerous enemy planes and participating in the strike that crippled the Japanese carrier Zukaku. Leyte Gulf and the dawn of the kamikaze threat. The Battle of Leyte Gulf in October 1944 was the largest naval battle in history. The Enterprise, as part of Task Force 38, played a crucial role in countering the complex Japanese attack plan. Her planes struck targets in the Philippines and engaged Japanese forces throughout the multi-phase battle. While the main Japanese carrier force was neutralized by other U.S. elements, the Enterprise continued to pound Japanese positions and ships. It was during this period that the desperate Japanese began to employ kamikaze tactics on a widespread scale. The final major battle of the war for the Enterprise was the brutal Okinawa campaign. Here, the U.S. fleet faced the full fury of the kamikaze. The Enterprise was hit multiple times. On April 11, 1945, a kamikaze aircraft struck near her aft elevator, causing significant damage but not knocking her out of the fight. Then, on May 14, 1945, she suffered her most grievous wound of the war when a kamikaze, carrying a 550-pound bomb, struck her forward elevator, completely destroying it and sending parts of it flying over 400 feet into the air. This hit finally forced the Enterprise to withdraw from the front lines as she needed to return to the US for extensive repairs. The war came to an end while she was still undergoing her repairs. The Grey Ghost had survived once again. She returned to duty in September 1945, not for combat, but for taking part in the Magic Carpet operations, bringing the American troops home from Europe. The USS Enterprise was decommissioned on February 17, 1947, and despite valiant efforts by veterans and enthusiasts to save her as a museum ship, she was eventually sold for scrap in 1958. It was a sad end for such a legendary vessel, but her legacy endures. Her record speaks for itself. The USS Enterprise earned 20 battle stars, more than any other US Navy ship in World War II. She was the only ship outside of the British Royal Navy to be awarded the British Admiralty Pennant. She participated in every major campaign in the Pacific Theater except for the invasion of Iwo Jima. Here's a list of her principal battle honors. Pearl Harbor, December 7, 1941. Marshall Islands Raid, February 1, 1942. Wake Island Raid, February 24, 1942. Marcus Island Raid, March 4, 1942. Doolittle Raid, April 18, 1942. Battle of Midway, June 4 to the 6th, 1942. Battle of the Eastern Solomons, August 24 to the 25th, 1942. Battle of Santa Cruz Islands, October 26, 1942. Naval Battle of Guadalcanal, November 13 to the 15th, 1942. Kwajalein and Mayuro Raids, January 30 to February 2, 1944. Truck Attack, February 16 to the 17th, 1944. Caroline Islands Air Attacks, March 30 to April 1, 1944. New Guinea Operations, April 21 to the 29th, 1944, and the Marianas Operations, June 12 through to August 10, 1944. The Battle of the Philippine Sea, Western Caroline Islands Operations, September 6 to the 17th, 1944, and Leyte Operations, October 10 to December 29, 1944. The Battle of Leyte Gulf, Luzon Operations, January 6 to the 17th, 1945. Iwo Jima Operations, February 15 to March 1, 1945, and finally the Okinawa Operations, April 1 to May 14, 1945. The USS Enterprise was more than just a ship. She was a symbol of American endurance, fighting spirit, and the technological might that ultimately won the war in the Pacific. Her story is a testament to the bravery of her crews and air groups, who faced unimaginable dangers and repeatedly brought their wounded ship back to fight another day. While the original CV-6 is gone, her name lives on, and no, I don't mean just in the TV shows. The legacy of the Big E has been carried by subsequent US Navy ships, including the world's first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, CVN-65, and the future Ford-class carrier, CVN-80. It's a name synonymous with heroism and innovation. And that, folks, wraps up our dive into the legendary USS Enterprise. I hope you enjoyed this look at one of the most incredible ships in naval history. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the Grey Ghost and if there are other ships you'd like to see covered on Jaxom Talks. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.